Too weak. This is simply too tragic. I'm so pitiful. Ah. Just how many more seals will I have to put on my body before his weak body can support me? It's so hard to become an intelligent soul ring. When the Skydream Iceworm had surged towards Huo Yuhao's body, a layer of incorporeal spiritual undulations had spread out from its body. These terrifying spiritual energy undulations almost instantly covered everything within 100 miles. When the spiritual energy undulations covered Bei Bei and Tang Ya, who had sped up to chase after Huo Yuhao, they immediately fell into a momentarily sluggish state. Although the spiritual attack hadn't been too damaging, it still caused all living beings to lose their ability to think for a short period of time. At this moment, a large portion of the southern area of the Great Star Doe Forest had become frighteningly quiet. Previously, the sky had been extremely clear and sunny. However, it had suddenly darkened, and a thunder-like boom resounded out in the air. In that instant, the sun's brilliant rays of light were unexpectedly covered up by the darkness. Then, an enormous pressure that caused one to be unable to even breathe descended from the sky. When the thunder-like boom resounded in the air, the Skydream Iceworm's enormous body, who was currently trying to merge with Huo Yuhao's body, violently shook for a moment. Its small, golden eyes looked upwards into the sky, and a terrified look immediately appeared inside of them. Inside of that terrified expression was also a hint of shock. The pressure in the sky clearly hadn't affected it, but it exceeded its knowledge. A gray stream of air descended from the sky, as if an enormous attractive force had sucked it downwards. After only an instant, it landed on the back of Huo Yuhao's head, and quietly entered it. Who dares to fight with this brother over a person? The Skydream Iceworm flew into a rage. Its huge spiritual undulations instantly surged forth in an attempt to expel the gray stream of air from Huo Yuhao's body. An extremely blurry figure appeared behind Huo Yuhao, and an aged voice with a hard-to-describe imposingness echoed out. The hand grasps the sun and moon, and also plucks the stars. This world has no one like me. I didn't think that this old man would have a trace of a remnant spirit left that still existed here. The vague and illusory figure didn't seem to be affected by the Skydream Iceworm's powerful spiritual attack at all. With a whoosh, it disappeared into the back of Huo Yuhao's head. The Skydream Iceworm didn't dare to strengthen his spiritual attack again, as traces of blood had already begun to seep out of Huo Yuhao's 7 apertures. He discovered that, after the gray stream of air had entered Huo Yuhao's mind, it had immediately turned into a soybean-sized gray pearl. Then, it had turned silent. It didn't conflict with his spiritual energy, nor could he affect it with his power. I can't be this unlucky. It was so hard to find a spiritual-type human, but a bastard wants to snatch him from me. Are the heavens jealous of a genius like myself? This brother is so pitiful. Although he was currently voicing his complaints, his movements didn't slow down at all. Dense white light gradually condensed and poured into Huo Yuhao's body, while the Skydream Iceworm's body both gradually turned more transparent during the process, and rapidly decreased in volume. There had already been no turning back for him. From the instant he'd started to pour his energy into Huo Yuhao's body, Huo Yuhao's body had turned completely jade white, and resembled the previous appearance of the Skydream Iceworm. His shoulders' wounds were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Wahaha, no matter what way you put it, this brother is finally free. You bastards who took me as food no longer have any chance. Wahaha, the Skydream Iceworm's voice, who was clearly pleased with himself, gradually turned soft. The huge spiritual energy that had previously covered 100 miles proceeded to shrink at a frightening speed, then gradually disappeared. Several terrifying auras from within the depths of the Great Star Doe Forest simultaneously let out violent undulations, as if they'd sensed something. However, they were fated to not have any success in their endeavors. When the Skydream Iceworm's voice had completely disappeared, a jade-white halo soundlessly appeared beneath Huo Yuhao's body. After circling around his body 3 times, its light dimmed, and the entire halo merged into his body, disappearing without a trace. Huo Yuhao didn't know that, while he was unconscious, he'd managed to obtain his first soul ring. Furthermore, this was a soul ring that was truly unrivaled and unique on the Douluo Continent. The jade-white color gradually faded from Huo Yuhao, and an ice-blue layer started to appear below his skin. This lasted roughly 10 seconds, before it gradually dimmed and restored the original color of his skin. Then, his body tilted, causing him to fall against the tree he'd previously leaned against. A thin white membrane that had a faint golden sheen to it soundlessly rose into the air, before it rapidly shrunk and formed a ball that disappeared inside of Huo Yuhao's heart. There were no more traces of the Skydream Iceworm's aura after that. The big hole in the road had already closed at an earlier time, and except for the collapsed Huo Yuhao, the baboon that had been killed by him had had its corpse left on the ground. Everything else also seemed to have recovered to its normal state. Not long afterwards, two figures ran over extremely quickly. A figure let out a cry, and instantly sped up. She sped over to Huo Yuhao's body, and stopped beside him. We're late. It seems little brother Yuhao was attacked. These soul beasts have really become more and more rampant. They've actually come out of the Great Star Do Forest. Tangya carefully helped Huo Yuhao up off the ground. A gloomy and worried expression on her face, Bei walked over to the baboon and turned it over. He saw that a slanted, foot-long wound had been inflicted on the baboon's chest, and that even its heart had been cut part. This was clearly a fatal wound. That was a wind baboon. From its size, and the strength of its muscles, it should be a 10-year soul beast. It's already dead. Bei walked over to Tangya and squatted down to check on Huo Yuhao's condition. The thing that amazed them was that, although Huo Yuhao's clothing had been seriously damaged, they couldn't find any sign of injury on his body. Bei tapped Huo Yuhao's wrist with his right forefinger, which caused the white tiger dagger to drop into his palm. A faint blue light flashed in Bei's hand for an instant, and then a hazy blue luster immediately appeared on the white tiger dagger. This is a soul tool. Yuhao must have used it to kill that wind baboon. Although the wind baboon was only a 10-year soul beast, both its speed and power are relatively decent, and it can also use an innate soul skill to attack its opponents. Since he can kill a wind baboon at his age, little Yuhao is already quite good. It seems that our earlier judgment of Yuhao wasn't accurate enough. He should already be a first-ring soul master. Tangya anxiously examined Huo Yuhao's body, then said, talking about this is useless right now. We wasted time all because you insisted that I wash my hands and my face. If something happens to little Yuhao because of that, I'll never forgive myself. No matter what level of talent he has, I've decided that I'll definitely convince him to join our Tang Sect. Bei's gaze softened as he looked at Tang Ya's anxious expression. The kindness that came from Tang Ya's heart was something he loved very much. Don't worry, he's fine. Can't you see that his breathing is normal? There aren't any wounds on his body either. Judging from the way he fainted, he must have lost consciousness after being slammed into that tree by the wind baboon during their battle. Tangya stared blankly for a moment, then raised her head up and glared at Bei. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You made me worried, Bei helplessly replied. Who could have known that you'd be unable to see something so simple? Tangya helped Huo Yuhao up, and allowed him to lean on her body. After confirming that he truly had no problems, she relaxed, stood up and carefully checked their surroundings as he quietly guarded Tangya. After Huo Yuhao fainted, he entered a dream. He dreamt that he'd entered a pure white space. There were many motes of light within the space, and he couldn't see the end of it. However, his gaze still seemed to somehow be able to reach every single corner of the space. Whilst in the midst of understanding the mysteries of the space, it had suddenly turned turbulent. After that, golden lights had interweaved and entered the space. The golden lights converged into enormous golden rings of light which floated in midair, and the many motes of light within the room started to increase in size due to their appearance. The 10 golden rings of light slowly started to rotate, and a milky white halo appeared within every single one of them. As the halo's strength increased, they gradually gathered together and formed 10 enormous balls of light that floated within the space. The height and the volume of the space increased many folds in size in turn. At that moment, an unremarkable gray ball of light appeared near one of the golden balls of light. The gray ball's size was much smaller than the other 10 balls of light. Furthermore, the golden balls of light began releasing a strong golden light, as if they wanted to chase it away. However, the gray ball remained tranquil, and continued to float in midair. No matter how much the golden lights attacked the gray ball, it didn't seem to be affected at all. In the end, the 10 golden lights could only give up on the meaningless task. They turned stable, and flickered with a dim luster. As Huo Yuhao's consciousness gradually cleared, the smaller motes of light that were floating in the space gradually sank downwards, forming a faint golden ocean that supported the 10 enormous balls of light. Only the extremely tiny gray light remained midair, unwilling to join the large balls of light. So you're called Huo Yuhao. A voice suddenly echoed out. Following that, Huo Yuhao's vision instantly retracted, and he unconsciously lowered his gaze. He could only see his naked self standing above the golden ocean, right in the middle of the 10 now golden white balls of light. Where is this? Why am I here? Huo Yuhao asked in amazement. This is your mind's sea of consciousness, or spiritual sea. In the future, this will be brother's home. This place was too small, so brother simply helped you expand it. However, your body is just too weak, so I'll have to make do for now. You're the Skydream Iceworm. I'm not dreaming. Huo Yuhao became even more stunned when he heard the voice and tone of the person who'd spoken. Everything that he saw in front of him had already surpassed his knowledge. Not to speak of Huo Yuhao, who is only 11, even adults would be shocked to the point of them trembling in fear if they were presented with such a miraculous scene, dreaming. If you were able to have such a nice dream, wouldn't you have died from happiness? This is obviously not a dream. As I said, this is the world within your mind. The Skydream Iceworm unhappily replied. Huo Yuhao blankly said. The Skydream Iceworm replied, you really are foolish. How do I explain this to you? Well, let's put it this way. You know about your eyes, they're the martial soul that your consciousness has just gone through your memories, so I know about your previous experiences. The spirit eyes are your martial soul, but at the same time also your eyes. Thus, the spiritual sea is where your spiritual energy is stored. If you want to display the might of your spirit eyes, you'll need to convert your soul force into spiritual energy, then release it using your spirit eyes. The specific location of your spiritual sea is your brain, behind your spirit eyes. As of right now, your consciousness is immersed within your spiritual sea. The body that you're seeing isn't actually your real body, but a body that I've created using spiritual energy for the sake of communicating with you. Huo Yuhao finally understood a few things after hearing this detailed explanation. The fear in his heart also weakened by a lot. Young kids were much more sensitive than adults at certain times, and he felt that the Skydream Iceworm truly didn't have any malicious intentions towards him. Then, how come you appeared in my spiritual sea? Huo Yuhao asked again. The Skydream Iceworm replied, didn't I just tell you? I want to become your soul ring, an intelligent soul ring. As of now, I've already become one. However, for the sake of becoming your soul ring, I've suppressed and sealed a large amount of my power. From now on, you'll have a soul ring, and can become one of the humans' so-called soul masters. However, your innate talent is much worse than what I thought. You can practically use the term, extremely poor, to describe it. I really don't know whether my choice was correct or not. Huo Yuhao was slightly ashamed as he said, I admit that my talent isn't that good. But, I'll work hard. My innate spirit power was only rank 1, the Skydream Iceworm gloomily said. I'll think of a method to help you improve yourself later on. As the length of the conversation increased, Huo Yuhao's guts did too. Skydream Iceworm, call me Brother Skydream. Fine, Brother Skydream. You said that you were a million-year soul beast, is that true? Also, why did you pick me? I've heard that soul scholars can only withstand soul rings that are below 400 years old. However, since you're a million-year soul beast, how were you able to become my soul ring? The Skydream Iceworm suddenly let out a long sigh. Do you think that I wanted to pick you? I had no other choice. If I'd continued to refrain from making a choice, my life would have come to an end. And once I died, my body would have most likely become food for those guys in the Great Douluo Forest. Under my state of helplessness, I could only use this plan to attach myself to you humans. This is also my only way out. Would you like to listen to my story in the future? We'll be with each other for a very, very long time. I don't want to hide anything from you either, so I'll tell you everything. Huo Yuhao nodded his head and said, Brother Skydream, please speak. The Skydream Iceworm replied, at first, I was just an ordinary iceworm soul beast. I wasn't born in the Great Douluo Forest, but in an extremely cold place located in the northern areas of the continent. We iceworms are soul beasts that have two innate attributes, spiritual and ice attributes. However, our combat strength is seriously limited by our speed. Thus, we can only be considered very ordinary soul beasts. What's more, we're also affected by the presence of natural predators. Very few of us can cultivate longer than 10,000 years. I'm the soul. When I was 13 years old, I carelessly fell into a crack in the ice whilst running away from a predator. At that time, I thought I was done for. However, who could have known that I'd drop into a ball of 10,000-year ice pith? I sank into a deep sleep after that. I was still very weak and small back then, and my body wasn't even 3 inches long. That sleep lasted for an entire 10,000 years. When I woke up, I found myself in an icy cave. That 10,000-year ice pith had disappeared, it had all been absorbed by me. However, as a result of my slumber, I had thus turned into a 10,000-year soul beast. I was indescribably pleased and surprised back then. However, I discovered that I couldn't find any way to exit the icy cave at all. I was surrounded by extremely hard ice in that icy cave. Although I had already become a 10,000-year soul beast, our Iceworm clan has always been weak in combat, resulting in me being unable to forcefully break through the ice. Fortunately, there were many holes in the icy cave that I was able to climb through. Thus, I crawled around in search of an exit. In the end, I still couldn't find an exit, but I found an even larger ball of ice pith. The appearance of this new ball of ice pith signified that I had food to eat. Hence, I entered another deep sleep. However, this sleep lasted several tens of thousands of years.